At 20, I wanted money. At 60, I wanted peace. I made my first million at 34. I lost my father at 35. I wasn't there when he died. I was in a boardroom in Dubai, closing a deal that needed me less than he did. He died at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, alone. And that morning, not the million, not the deal, that morning is the one I think about every single day. When you're 20, hunger feels like purpose. You wake up with this fire, this absolute certainty that your life will be different, bigger, better. You look at people who have money and you think, that's the finish line. If I get there, I win. Nobody tells you that's a lie. In fact, everything around you confirms it. Movies, ads, your father's disappointments, your mother's silent sacrifices, they all point in the same direction. Get money, then you'll be okay. And there's actual science behind why we believe this so completely at 20. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that weighs long-term consequences, isn't fully developed until you're 25. We are literally biologically wired at 20 to chase immediate reward and call it ambition. I skipped my sister's wedding at 22 for a job interview. I didn't get the job. She never forgot the empty chair. I told myself it was a necessary sacrifice. That's what ambitious people do. They sacrifice. But here's the thing nobody interrogates. Sacrifice for what exactly? We say for the future, but the future is just a series of present moments you haven't lived yet. And if you don't learn to be present, the future becomes just another place you're rushing through. At 20, I wanted money because I thought money meant safety. What I didn't understand, what took me 4 more decades to understand, is that I wasn't chasing wealth. I was running from fear. Your 30s are the most dangerous decade, not because bad things happen, but because everything looks like it's working. You're earning, you're climbing, your LinkedIn profile is impressive, you go to sleep exhausted and you call that productivity. You miss your kids' school play and you call it necessary. You stop calling old friends because you don't have time and you call it growing apart. In 1978, psychologists Brickman, Coates, and Janoff Bullman published a landmark study comparing lottery winners to paraplegic accident victims. Within 1 year, both groups reported nearly identical levels of happiness. The lottery winners weren't significantly happier. Their baseline just reset, higher and then back down. This is called hedonic adaptation. Your brain is designed to normalize every achievement within 90 days. Every raise, every promotion, every new car, gone, absorbed into the baseline, so you chase the next thing and the next. Not because you're greedy, because your nervous system is doing exactly what it was built to do. Harvard psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar named this the arrival fallacy, the false belief that reaching a goal will deliver lasting happiness. He watched it destroy some of the most successful people he ever studied. I watched it destroy parts of me. At 33, I was making more money than my father made in his entire life. I started therapy. My income and my therapy appointments rose together on a graph. I thought that was ironic. Now I know it was a warning I kept ignoring. I was also grinding my teeth every night, sleeping 5 hours and feeling, quietly, privately, completely empty. The things I lost in my 30s I cannot get back. My son's first 3 years. I was there, but I wasn't present. There's a difference. My body was in the room. My mind was on the next quarter. Those years are gone. 3 friendships that needed time, I wouldn't give them. Those men have moved on. The closeness is gone. My health's early warnings. The fatigue, the tension, the cortisol-soaked mornings, I overrode them all with coffee and willpower and called it discipline. My father was 71 when he died. He wasn't a famous man. He drove a second-hand car his whole life. He never made $1 million. By every metric I had built my life around, he hadn't succeeded. But when I finally read his journal, sitting on the floor of his house 3 days after the funeral, I found something that broke me completely. He had written about me, pages about me, not about money, not about my achievements, though he mentioned them. He wrote about a Sunday afternoon when I was 9 years old and we flew a kite, and I laughed so hard I fell in the grass. He wrote about that like it was the best day of his life. I had no memory of it. I had spent 35 years becoming someone impressive and forgotten. The afternoon I was simply someone's joy. The World Health Organization's data is clear. Stress-related illness and cardiovascular disease peak in men between 45 and 55, the exact years of peak career ambition. We are literally killing ourselves during the years we believe we are most alive. And the cruelest part? You don't see the breaking point coming. It doesn't announce itself. One Tuesday morning, it's just there. A phone call, a diagnosis, a door that closes. And suddenly the calendar that once felt so full looks obscene. All those meetings, all those flights, all those hours that went somewhere other than the people who needed you. I flew back from Dubai for a funeral instead of a conversation. That is the one trait I will never recover from. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care nurse who spent years sitting with people in the last weeks of their lives. She recorded their regrets, published them. The world shared them millions of times because they hit something universal. The number one regret of the dying was not, "I wish I'd made more money." It was, "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Money didn't even make the top 5. The Harvard study of adult development is the longest scientific study of human happiness ever conducted, over 80 years, tracking the same people from youth to old age. Their conclusion, after 8 decades of data, was simple and devastating. The quality of your relationships at 50 determines the quality of your health at 80. Not your net worth, not your title, your relationships. The people who aged the best, who stayed sharp, healthy, and genuinely happy, were the ones who had warm, reciprocal human connections. That's it. That was the whole answer. 8 decades of research, one finding. Peace at 60 is not what I imagined at 20. At 20, I thought peace was what you felt after you'd won. After the money was there, the house was paid, the status was secured. Then you'd relax, then you'd exhale. That's not how it works. Peace is not a reward. It's a practice. And if you don't practice it when you're young, you don't automatically receive it when you're old. What you receive when you're old is the accumulated weight of everything you neglected. Stanford longevity researchers found that chronic loneliness reduces lifespan by 15 years, more deadly than obesity, more deadly than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And loneliness doesn't mean living alone. It means feeling unseen, even in a room full of people, even in a marriage, even at the head of a company. I knew men at the peak of their power who were the loneliest people I had ever met. I was one of them. The ones who don't make the shift spend their final decades confused about why the things that once drove them no longer satisfy them. I am 61 years old. I wake up now without an alarm. I drink coffee on my porch. I call my son on random Tuesdays. Not birthdays, not holidays, random Tuesdays, just to hear his voice. I have learned to sit in a room without checking my phone. These sound like small things. They are not small things. They are the things I fought my entire life to be too busy for, and they are the only things that feel real. Your calendar is your autobiography, not your LinkedIn, not your bank statement. Your calendar, how you actually spent the hours of your one irreversible life, that is the truest record of your values. Look at it, right now, if you can. Look at this week. What does it say you love? What does it say you're afraid of? What does it say you keep choosing over the people? Who will one day sit in a funeral and wonder if you knew they mattered? At 20, I wanted money, I got it. At 60, I wanted peace, I'm learning it. The tragedy isn't failing to get rich. The tragedy is getting rich and realizing too late what you traded for it. Don't wait for a Tuesday morning phone call to understand what I'm telling you.